find the girl of his dreams. Once upon a time, Emperor Macsen woke up in the palace. And it was early morning, but he was so hot. It was just one of those really burning summer days, and he thought, I can't do any governing today. It's just going to be awful. So I can't hear the droning of my ministers all day. You know what? I am going to go hunt. And so he jumped on his stallion and he galloped off with all his friends, knights and lords around him to the forest by the river. And in there it was so cool, the trees just arched above him, the branches provided shade for his weary body and mind. And he felt refreshed, and he pursued the hunt. Several hours later, several deer later, several other smaller things later, they stopped for lunch. And because he had gotten up so early, he'd been so hot and he'd just had a really exhausting horse ride, he went to sleep. And when he slept, he had a dream. And in his dream, it seemed to him that he was following the river westward towards its source. After that, it seemed as though in the distance he saw great towering mountains, the largest in the world. He started climbing up the mountains, through the valleys and through the passes. Conifer trees swooped up on either side of him, then great crags of rock. And finally, at the highest mountains of all, they were capped in snow and ice. He came down the other side of those mountains, and there before him was a fair, green and golden plain, the noblest he'd ever seen. And winding through that plain were great rivers. He followed along these rivers till he came to the sea. At the mouth of the largest river of all, there was a great city, with a noble castle, with fine, colourful towers. It was a port city, and there were plenty of ships, all gilded in silver, and the largest and most noblest of all was gilded in gold. It had a gangplank made of whalebone. Macsen boarded this ship, and it seemed to bear him across the sea to a great island, the best island he had ever seen. He walked through that island till he came to a very rugged part of it, quite like the other mountainous part he journeyed through earlier, still with the tall, steep slopes, the rushing waterfalls, the V-shaped valleys, but not quite as high. And from the topmost peak of those mountains, he saw a great plain beneath him, and opposite that, a misty, magical island. Coming from the mountain, at one side, there was a river, and that emptied out into the ocean opposite the island. By the mouth of that river there was a castle. It seemed to him that he went down from the mountain, across the plain and into the castle. The doors of the hall were wide open for him, nothing stood in his way. And by the entrance of the hall were two young men playing chess, one blonde, one auburn-haired. Their hair was caught by golden chaplets studded with gems. And in a chair of gold by the fire, there sat an old and ancient gentleman with the wisdom of years in his eyes. By his side sat a beautiful young woman. In his dream, the young woman got up to meet him. Macsen threw his arms round her neck. They sat down in the chair together. And then Macsen woke up. All round him were his lords, no beautiful women, just his lords. His face fell and fell until it touched his chest. And that's how he went round for months and months and months. He just moped in his bedroom. One day his page came to him and said, "Lord, get your acts together. Every one of your lords and your people are speaking ill of you." "Oh, why are they speaking ill of me?" he asked. "Well, they've not been able to interact with you for an entire year. That's no way for a king to govern, and if you don't take care, you'll find yourself dethroned." So Macsen thought, well, I can't have this. I better take counsel on this matter. So he went to his counsellors and he told them about his dream. "Lord," said they, bowing low, "since it has pleased you to ask our counsel, we advise that you send 3 messengers into the 3 parts of the world for a space of a year to seek the maiden that you saw in your dream." So that counsel pleased the emperor, and he ordered that this be done. At the end of the year, the 3 messengers came back, and they'd not been able to find the girl. "I know," said Macsen. "Why didn't I do this before? That was really stupid. You should come with me to where I was when I had the dream. I'll describe my route to you in the dream, and then you'll be able to find the girl." So they went back to the riverbank where Macsen had slept. And he began to describe to them his dream. "In my dream," I said, "I followed the river that flows through Rome. I followed it westwards towards its source. After that," he said, "I came across very high mountains that reached to the sky. Beyond that was a green and golden plain, France, and in that were rivers running through, leading to the sea. By the mouth of that was a city, and in that city was a fine fleet of ships, some gilded with silver, one gilded with gold, and I embarked on those ships towards an island, the fairest island in all the world. I traversed that island until I came to mountains. From the highest peak of those mountains, I saw a river flowing down across a plain, coming out into a bit of sea opposite which was an island. By the mouth of that river was a castle. So Macsen sent some messengers off to follow the route from his dream. And they journeyed and they journeyed and they found everything exactly as the king had described. They got to the hall. They found the boys playing chess by the entrance, the old man in his chair, and the girl. They bowed the knee before her. "Empress of Rome," cried they, "all hail!" The girl stared at them. She was a girl of pride and spirit. "What mockery is this you do to me?" she cried. "I am no Empress of Rome." "No mockery, lady," they said. "We come on behalf of the Emperor of Rome, who has seen you in a dream and has no life for love of you. Therefore, we give you this choice, whether you come with us now to him or whether we go back and tell him to come and fetch you." Now the girl, Helen was her name, was rather offended at this manner of speaking to her. What would be the best answer? "Well," she said to the envoys, "I will not believe what you say, and neither will I discredit it. If the emperor wants me, he must come get me himself. It will be the best test of his love." So the messengers ran back to Rome and told the emperor, "We found your girl!" He was over the moon. He took horse and he rode all the way through Italy, France to Britain. He conquered Britain as he went through it to find the girl of his dreams. And then he got to the hall in the castle by the mouth of the river opposite that misty magical island we call Anglesey. And he went into the hall. There were the two boys playing chess, the old man in the chair, and the beautiful young woman by his side. She stood up. She greeted him. He threw his arms around her neck. She threw her arms around his neck. They sat down in the chair together. And that night, they were married. That's the end of part 1 of The Dream of Macsen Wledig. Tune in next week for part 2. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a good sleep tonight.